It has been 9 years since the initial release of the Nintendo Switch, and since then, many games have released on the system, starting with Breath of the Wild on launch day to releasing Metroid Prime 4 in late 2025. As we slowly migrate our way over to Nintendo Switch 2, I wanted to take the time to make this video mentioning the games I had the most enjoyment on. I want to preface that these are my opinions, so please don't jump me in the comments, and if you have a favorite game that wasn't on my list, feel free to share it in the comments below. Enough rambling, let's jump right in. There is no way to not start off this list without mentioning Super Mario Odyssey, the game that changed 3D Mario once again. Going back into that sandbox form that Mario 64 had and bringing it to the modern era. I'm going to be honest, it took me a while to truly appreciate this game. I remember saying it was a good game and just that, but it wasn't until my second playthrough where I really started to appreciate the game for what it was. I made a really old video gushing about why I came to appreciate it, but that's not the point. But to keep it short, the large amount of content, environments, and how alive the kingdoms felt, it was overall a great time, and to release in 2017 in the Switch's first year gave it a major success, no doubt, as that year was a generational year for games. Odyssey is pretty much a nearly perfect game with great control of Mario, the capture mechanic, the speedrun potential of this game, the relaxing soundtrack, and there's a lot more I'd like to say about this game, but I do want to move on with the next game. And 2017 Odyssey came out, but what also came out that year was the Switch's first game, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, redefining the open world genre, receiving countless awards, winning Game of the Year, and all of that stuff. It wasn't until 2023 where I actually got to sit down and play the game for the first time. From the moment on I booted up the game, I was hooked into the world of Hyrule. It's hard to put into words what playing Breath of the Wild felt like. Getting lost in the world of Hyrule, exploring, was an incredible experience. It really encourage you to explore as much as you can. On top of that, you have things that you look out for. If you've played Breath of the Wild, then you already know about this big guy. Guardians make the game a lot more terrifying because of how overpowered they are, especially in the early game. The boss fights themselves were good for the most part. The final boss was satisfying with how epic it was and how epic it felt. The world of Hyrule feels truly alive as you find towns and places to visit. My favorite spot in the game for sure was Lurelin Village. The music in that area and how relaxing the beachside was, not to mention just how visually stunning the game looked in that area. And for a Switch game, this was incredible, being on par with games that came out on the PS4 and Xbox One at the time. Yeah, Tears of the Kingdom does have a lot of improvements and cool shenanigans that you can do, but it personally didn't hit the same for me as playing Breath of the Wild for the first time. But while in the current year of 2026, people are getting tired of the open world Zelda now that we've had 2 games and a few spin-offs involving it. But at the same time, this was an industry defining moment for games. It changed how games are made to this day, and many games take inspiration from it, and to this day, Breath of the Wild influences how open world games are, for better or for worse. I've gotten the 2 obvious best Switch titles out of the way, but I want to talk about the series that I used to come to hate, but playing this game, I came to really like it. And I'm talking about Fire Emblem Three Houses. For starters, this game is pretty easy to get into. It's one I recommend for newcomers of the Fire Emblem series to get in. It's engaging story, varied cast of characters, 4 routes you can take, a lot of content in that game right off the bat. Up to 120 hours for everything. Not only that, the gameplay is really addictive. The game has a lot of replay ability. There's also unbalanced classes, making it insanely easy to break the game. And for those that have not played this game, I implore you choose Blue Lions, because that's clearly the best house and I will die on that hill. Regardless, it doesn't matter what house you choose. But what makes Three Houses addictive is the creativity you have with this game. You can do whatever you please in this game if you take enough time to make the right builds and such. It's also a game that requires you to use his brains. It's not an easy game if you're playing on hard or maddening. I've had a good amount of experience in the harder difficulties, so I think I know a little bit of stuff about this game. But in Three Houses, you can also learn more about the characters through support conversations and come to really appreciate how much passion was poured into this game. The cast is quite varied and there may be characters you may come attached to, but overall, Three Houses was a really great game and a lot of content to unpack. So like I said before, if you want to start the Fire Emblem series, I highly recommend picking up Fire Emblem Three Houses. This next game was a game anticipated for years, since 2002, and of course I am talking about Metroid Dread, which Dread was arguably the most hyped game in 2021, a continuation of the last game, Metroid Fusion, released back in 2002, so after 19 long years, Dread released and it was an excellent game. Known for its smooth controls, fluid movement, great atmosphere, fun boss fights and such, Dread was really a great sequel to Fusion, adding tons of new lore to the game. It may be a short game, but I found it to be replayable as well, always trying to get a faster time to unlock more concept art, more details and all. It was a near 10 out of 10 to be honest. But even despite its small complaints I have, it's still a 9 and nearly perfect. Combat is also easy to understand as well, making first timers have a solid time with Metroid Dread. On the other hand, enemies were a terrifying addition and were similar to that of the SAX, where instead of scripted set pieces, the enemy were now directly involved in trying to capture Samus. The boss fights in the game were insanely fun, with discovering new ways to defeat them to sequence breaking, and the side modes were a decent little addition to an already great game. The lore behind the game was interesting as well, with part of it being environmental storytelling, but more importantly, we actually heard Samus talk, and not that other end bullshit. It may be a short game with the $60 price tag, but it basically brought back hype to the Metroid series, and I'm excited for what 2D Metroid has in the future. Speaking of Metroid, I must bring up Metroid Prime Remastered, already considered as one of Nintendo's most iconic games ever. This game is an all-time classic, and for the price of $40, it's an unbeatable deal with updated controls, visuals, and quality of life changes. Now, Metroid Prime Remastered, like the original, is an experience. You become immersed into the world of Talon 4, looking for lore logs, learning about what happened through seeing the world around you. I really like when games just let you get lost without it really being a hindrance, and they just let you explore the world and discover new things. It's definitely an action-packed game, so you'll always have to stay on your toes when exploring as well. The locations can differentiate from a hot magma cavern to a frozen tundra. Prime Remastered is an excellent game and one I immediately bought because I wanted to start the Prime series, and man, it was worth exploring Talon 4. Now, I'm not sure for this next game, I could have picked the entire series or just one game out of the trilogy, but I said screw it and decided to bring up the main trilogy of this series, and I am talking about the Xenoblade Chronicles trilogy. Xenoblade is a series I hold so special to my heart because of how much it impacted me on an emotional scale. The incredible storytelling of the series is just an experience, and not to mention the combat for each game is great, except for one. I think one's combat is absolute shit. Anyway, as for Xenoblade 2 and 3's, the combat is both complex and fun to learn. What makes each game special is that each game has its own world, cast of characters, and antagonists that you love or hate. Xenoblade 1 has a really strong start and gets you hooked immediately with an intense mecha invasion that happens in Colony 9. You're hooked immediately as shit hits the fan and Shulk screams like crazy. While Xenoblade 2 gets a lot of hate, whether because it's the voice direction or just anime bullshit that people on Twitter may say. But Xenoblade 2 is an all-time game for myself, and it took a while for me to truly appreciate Xenoblade 2 for what it was, to be honest with you. I didn't like the 4 chapters at first because of how slow it felt, but once you reach the second half of the game, that's where Xenoblade 2 really picks up and reaches its peak with the late game. It's definitely a game you require a lot of commitment to, but I think it pays off really well at the end. The combat of 2 is also broken as all hell since you have the Aegis's, blade system, and skill trees you upgrade, so on. Oh, and Monosoft, please make a Nintendo Switch 2 Definitive Edition of Xenoblade 2, I need it badly. Now, the latest entry, not counting the Xenoblade X Remaster released last year, is Xenoblade Chronicles 3 in 2022, and this is personally my favorite Xenoblade Chronicles game, and it's also my top 3 Switch games. What sets this game apart is having 6 party members at once, and a crucial addition I wanted was character switching, so you can finally control as a healer and an attacker in the same battle, making the game much more hands-on than ever. I really like the class system in the game as it lets you discover builds that you can play around with or just have builds that can annihilate any boss that comes your way. The Ouroboros was a solid gimmick as well, being able to use them as ways to initiate combos or bail you out of any danger. The world of 3 was also a mix of Xenoblade 1 and 2, so you may find references along the way, and overall I think 3 is my favorite because I had the most hours on, and I found the combat to be the most fun compared to the rest of the Xenoblade series. So this is pretty much the final list in a specific order. I could have just made the list in any order, but I think this is the order of what my favorite Switch games are, from my favorite to like my top 6. Anyways, that's the end of this video, and hey, let me know what your favorite first party Switch game was down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate you hitting the like button, and hey, why not subscribe to the channel for more videos like this? That's all I wanted to say. So until then, take care and have a good one.